But my name is Sherry Smith. I was born in Century, Florida. I lived in Castleberry, Alabama until I was 3. From there, my parents and I, we moved to Evergreen, Alabama, to Brewton, Alabama. In 1951, we moved to Pensacola. So I've lived in Pensacola since 1951. So this is really more like home. Of course, I worked out at Monsanto. Of course, when I started working out there, it was Chemstrand, and it became Monsanto. I worked in accounting. I actually first got involved with the credit union in the 1970s. In the 1970s, the credit union was structured a little bit different than it is now. What I mean by that is, we had a board of directors, a supervisory committee, credit committee, and an educational committee. Well, I actually started out, my association with the credit union was I was asked to be on the educational committee. I was on that committee, I think, a couple of years, and then I ran for the supervisory committee. I used the word ran. Back in those times, the board of directors, the supervisory committee, was elected by the members. Today, the supervisory committee is appointed by the board of directors. We're not elected by members. Anyway, I was elected to the supervisory committee. I served 2 terms. During my second term, I had a lot of issues and problems that came about in my life. And I chose not to run for the 3rd term because, like I said, I had a lot of personal problems. And I'm one of these, if I don't have the time or the energy to give something I think it deserves, then I feel like I should not be there. And I just had a lot of other things I really needed to deal with. So I chose not to run. And then in 2002, I was appointed by the board of directors, or elected by the board of directors, to go back on the supervisory committee, and I've been serving since 2002. No, I actually started working at Chemstrand when I was in college. I worked in the summertime as what they referred to as the summer students.
Where'd you go to college?
Mississippi State University. And I liked a few hours finishing my education, not because I wanted to walk away from it, but my mother was hurt in an accident real bad, and I'm an only child. And she needed a lot of care. And my father couldn't, like I said, I'm an only child. My father could not take care of my mom and work too. I said, I just got to go home. I have to go home. And so I came home to try to take care of my mom. And of course, I needed a job. So because I had worked out at the plant as a summer student, I went out and I actually applied for full-time work, and I was hired. I'm probably one of the few people that's ever been hired by that company 5 times. So I don't know if I was that good or that lucky, but anyway, I actually was hired by Chemstrand Monsanto, 5 different times. And of course, I worked out there 35 and a half years. I worked in accounting, and like any job, every job has pluses and minuses, but overall, I enjoyed my work, and even though I had some bad days, the good by far outnumbered the bad. So I, retired in 2000. Love being retired. Well, I worked in various areas. They had an area like they called office services. One summer I worked there. Another summer I worked what they call safety, the safety office. Summer students, you just, you kind of worked wherever they had a place they wanted to put you. You were not really, designated a specific type area, They only hired people who were, in college. They didn't, hire someone that was just, hey, I need a job, so we'll hire you for 3 months, Well, of course, we still have a great percentage of our members are either retirees from the company or they work out there now. So, and of course, one of our supervisory committee members, she still works at the plant. So I'm always, hey Donna, how are things going? You know, what's happening, and you know, because I have an attachment to that plant. You know, I would love to see the plant succeed. Of course, it is not the company today that I went to work for. I can speak of the credit union, how it related to me when I was working, okay, and I think would apply to anyone else that was working at the plant. You know, when you're young, it's not uncommon to live from payday to payday. I mean, you know, you're starting out and you know, all you're doing is buying. I mean, you know, you're not in a position to be able to save a lot of money. So the credit union was our livelihood. I needed a car, you went to the credit union and made a loan. If you needed a new washing machine or refrigerator or what, you went to the credit union, you made a loan. Sometimes if you want to buy a house, you went to the credit union, you know, took a mortgage out. I mean, it was just like, if the credit union had not been there, our people would have suffered because they cared about us. Of course, our initial membership in the credit union was nothing but people who were employed with the company. And then as years went by, that membership base was expanded. But for many, oh gosh, I really don't know how many years it was, that the membership strictly, you had to be an employee of the company, and your spouse and children could be members, but that's where it stopped. Also during those years, of course we only had one branch, it was out at the plant. We had what we call payroll deduction, and you made a loan at the credit union, and automatically every payday a payment came out of your check that was automatic. The company automatically, you know, would send that to the credit union, which made your payments on whatever your loans were. So you don't have to worry about writing checks or going over and physically giving them cash money, you know. And it was wonderful. I mean, well, all of us, we absolutely loved the credit union. I mean, if it hadn't been there, I don't know what we would have done. I guess we would have survived, but it made our lives, it helped us from the standpoint we didn't have to worry financially if we needed to borrow money, where to go. Everything was made accessible. But you know, we didn't have a big turnover of people. I mean, people back in those days, even though I didn't work out there in the 50s, but in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, if you had a job, you were very thankful. You know, you didn't carry an attitude that, hey, company, you better be glad I decided to come to work today. But that definitely started changing. Even I saw it probably starting around the middle 80s. You started seeing this attitude change of what young people, what they perceived in a company offering them a job. You definitely saw it in the 90s. Their attitude was not, oh, I thank you, I have a job. You know, you're lucky I even decided I would take your offer. And that played a lot into my opinion, into how the environment in which we were accustomed to working in, it drastically changed. The company changed, management changed, and how they looked at employees. You know, for a long, long, long time, we felt like we were one big family. We felt like we owned the place. It was important to us that that plant succeed, that it be the very best of anything in the world. But then, you know, much, much later in years, that totally changed. It became evident, you know, management looked at us as your number, and that's all you are. Starting in the 90s, they started cutting our benefits, which doesn't make any employee happy. It's just a different world. As I said, the plant today is definitely not the plant I went to work at. When I retired, it was not the company I went to work for. And I'm sorry that we lost the family environment that we had when I started to work there. We worked under that type of an umbrella probably until in the 1980s. A lot of women?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. Well, of course, I never worked in the production areas, but when I went to work out at the plant, overall employment was probably around between 8,000 and 8,500. What percentage did the females make up of that number? I would say they made up at least 40%. Well, with the exception of women who worked in the office areas down in intermediates, it was like all men. But when you look at the nature of the work, if somebody said, hey, you want to work in intermediates and, climb to the top of towers and, go down and, check tanks and all that, I thought, that's not for me, But of course, in today's time, a lot of women, oh, no, I'm going to do everything a man does, But the yarn plant, there was as many women up there, if not more, than there was men. Because we had the 3 draw twist areas, which nothing but women worked out there, and there was lots of them, a lot of them. When that plant opened in the 1950s, you could take the 60s, you could take the 70s. For a man or a woman, because of the pay scale, because of the benefits, the only other exception that would have matched or maybe a little bit exceeded what we had out at the plant would have been going to work for civil service at the Navy base. It was a good place to work. Now, we didn't, any of us, they didn't make us multi-millionaires, but the pay was good. If you, managed your money and were not foolish, you could have a good living. You could have a decent home and, take vacations and, do those fun things that we like to do. Well, the young people back in that time, our attitude towards someone offering us a job, we were thankful. It wasn't, how much are you going to pay me? We were just thankful to God. Someone saw some faith in us and said, this will be a good employee. We want this person to work here. We were more, it was more important to us to have a job than it was to, how much money is it going to pay? Well, that has reversed now. Everyone approaches a job now, how much money does it pay? What do I get out of it, And I mean, not that I'm saying what your income is not important, but I've always been one of these, half of being successful in your career is liking what you do. And then the income added to it, makes you a happy camper. In other words, you get up every morning, you're glad to get dressed, you're glad to go to work. You don't go to work, oh no, I got to get up ready, I got to go to work, And I really feel like that the majority of the people who worked at that plant through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, their attitude was, man, I'm ready to go to work. I want to go to work. I know I was. What do I look forward to with Gulf Winds? Well, of course, we want to continue to grow, which I think we will. I love this credit union. It's important to me for us to be successful in whatever way we end up being a success. And what I mean by that is, it's important to meet your members' needs. It's important to make your members feel like this is where I want to do my banking. Because these people care about me. These people want to help me, whatever my needs are. I know I can walk in here and someone's going to sit down and talk with me, and they're going to do everything possible to help me with whatever financial problem I might have. And to me, that is probably the most important thing in order for this credit union to remain successful and to be successful 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. I think we have an excellent management team. One thing that I admire in our management team is they think forward. In other words, they're thinking in 5 years, this is where we want to be. 10 years, this is where we want to be. They're very mindful of, the young people, they like to do everything either on a computer or their little smartphones. So, we've had to make a lot of changes so that people can handle things on what we call online. And, we're we stay on top of that because it's one of these things they're going to demand. And if you don't meet what they want, then they'll go down the street and do business with someone that, that does meet that. I just think that we have a great group. We have an outstanding board of directors. No way would we be where we are today if it was not for the dedication and the knowledge and the smarts they have. I mean, a lot of them have been with this credit union almost from the ground up. I know y'all know who Vance Bateman is. Vance Bateman, he was president of the Florida League for a number of years. We have 3 board members who are in the Florida League Hall of Fame. That you just don't get that just by showing up. You have to be productive. You have to make wise decisions. And I don't, in my time, don't really feel like that our board has never made the right decision that will benefit all membership. Not a percentage of the membership, but every person that's a member of this credit union. That's why I guess I respect them so much. I love working with them, interacting with them. If I could just maybe sometimes be half as intelligent as some of them are when it comes to running a credit union and, making those decisions, I'd be, very happy. So I'm just glad I have the opportunity to, to be around them. Our function is that we are to oversee this credit union to make sure that it operates according to policies, procedures, and regulations. We have our own procedures. We have our own policy. Policy is made by the board of directors. And then we have our regulations, state and federal regulations. And we have to adhere to all of this. So our response is to oversee and make sure that this credit union operates according to the policy, procedures, and regulations. Every year we employ an external auditing firm or auditors that come in and they audit our financials. And basically what they're looking is to make sure that we're handling our members' money like it should be handled, that the members' money is where they want it to be, and of course, make sure no one's, stealing or whatever from the credit union. Also, once a year, NCUA, that's the federal people that come in, and they do an in-depth, complete audit. I mean, not only do they audit the financials, I mean, they audit your strategic plans. They double check all of our policies and make sure we have controls in to make sure no one, if they should try to, do something, embezzle money or whatever, we got a control that's going to catch them. Matter of fact, both of these different agencies just came in and did an audit. We got a very, very good report from NCUA, which makes us feel proud because that tells us our people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Fortunately, the board of directors many, many years ago felt that it was most important that we have an internal auditor, that we employ an internal auditor, which makes the committee's life easier, I guess is the best word to use, because a lot of what the internal auditor does, we would have to come in on our time and do, or else employ someone else to come in and do it for us. Like I said, a lot of the credit unions don't have internal auditors. There's more that don't have one than does have one. Our internal auditor, all he does, he audits. And of course, the supervisory committee, we have the right that we can audit or look at anything within this credit union. Yeah, we're very happy to have our internal auditor, and he does an outstanding job.
Is it a volunteer position?
What?
Serving on the
we're volunteers, yes. We don't get paid anything. The board doesn't get paid anything, and we don't either. You're here because you love the credit union. You're here because you take a very strong interest, and you wanted to see this credit union survive, succeed, and be very, very successful. Yeah. Okay.
No, some of these